Good morning. It's, of course, 72 and sunny here inside, and welcome to Murfreesboro Live. And today's show is going to be on the election results for the state of Tennessee and Rutherford County that we did yesterday. Welcome in. Of course, we have Gary and Ken and I to go over the elections. And on a side note, this is the first day of school for Rutherford County, first full day. Wednesday we had a abbreviated day, and then today is the first full day. So I was able to go back out to Eagleville and have biscuits at Sewell's Grocery with some of the guys. Their fair weather friend was there. I came in and waited for the Rockville. We have to go out past Rockville schools, those traffic guards, and so I sit out at the grocery and have biscuits with some of the more seasoned citizens of our fine county, and we solve all the world problems in county, and for some reason no one will implement them, so we don't know if they work or not. But we talked a little bit about the election, and one of the guys comes in geographically, that Eagleville isn't far from Bedford and Williamson County, so some of the people come in from different counties, and we all get to talk politics and weather and everything else. But today we're going to be going over Rutherford and the state election results. So for governor, it looks, of course, like Bill Haslam has retained his position with about 84%. Got my daughter's iPad, and she's much more proficient at it than I am. So I hit something, and the whole screen went away.
John is, of course, our technology advisor. He stays up to date on all technology, the latest software and hardware and programming things. So we always look to him for direction as to how we should run things as far as technology goes. He is the master of the iPad, the king of Windows, and the reigning champion of the Mac operating system. Any technological questions, send them straight to John. He will get you taken care of within moments.
Translation, Ken is saying I can turn any working device into an Etch-a-Sketch pad faster than anybody he knows. But out with the show, Bill Haslam retained his seat as governor. Then for the local, we'll get to the rest of the. Bill Ketchern was unopposed, so he got 90-some% of the votes, 99. Rick Womack, unopposed. Eddie Smotherman lost to Don White. Represent House 37th Representative District, and I guess the other two, Bill Ketchern's 13, and Don White is going to be Tennessee House 37th District Representative. And of course, some of these results, let's go back, this was a two things happened. We voted in May as a local county runoff as the primary, and so like the school board and commission, some other things, this was their general election, but it's also the combined primary for the Republicans, so we'll have to know who we'll vote for in November. And Gary may want to chime in. And real quick, one thing that before Gary comes in that people don't understand or probably don't know so much about, and you can go back through our previous shows on Murfreesboro Live, but you can see Tim Rudd, a show with him, and he's the state executive committeeman for District 13, which is here in Rutherford County, and he ran unopposed. And won. And a little side note, Wayne Blair won. Everybody that was on Murfreesboro Live won their respective seats. So maybe that could be a trend for us is that if you come on Murfreesboro Live, you have a better chance on winning your seat because of all the publicity and all the technical advice we have here on Murfreesboro Live.
I think there was something, John, wasn't there with the city cafe straw polls or something? Wasn't that kind of an indicator of politics as well?
Yes, but of course that's been taken over by our show.
Of course.
Yeah, but yes, the city cafe straw poll has been pretty reliable over the last several years, many years. But Gary, what do you have to add for the show? And good morning.
Good morning. Good to finally be back with you guys. One of the things that I was looking at, and especially relating to me, is District 49, is that Mike Sparks won that particular vote against Robert Stevens, which kind of saddens me. Not that I have anything against Mike Sparks at all, but Robert Stevens is somebody I was in Boy Scouts with, and we used to go to the same church together. So, I mean, he represents my views, I believe, at least so far it seems like. That's one important thing. But just for the fact that, I've known him for a long time, I was kind of sad to see that he lost that. But on the flip side, he did also run for a county commissioner district. Robert Stevens, that is. He ran for the county commissioner district, and he was unopposed in that. Of course, he did well with that in county district 12, that is. So I guess he lost one but won another, so that's okay on all well and good. Now yesterday, I do have to say this, and I hope this does not betray my citizenship or lack of participation thereof. But yesterday was actually the first time I've ever voted in an election that was not also a presidential election. So there were some new experiences for me in that I thought was very interesting, very fun. There was a lot of people.
So much of an influence. This show is having an influence.
It is. It's even changed how I vote. I mean, as far as the fact that I vote, and other times not just the presidential vote. But yeah, there was this, it was very eye-opening. I mean, there was a lot of stuff and a lot of people. I realized I couldn't even put anything forward because, I have I didn't even know that they even offered, for example, that an option to say, does this Supreme or a state Supreme Court justice, do you want him to stay or go? They had options like that on there. I was like, holy cow, I didn't know we even had a choice in that or a say in that. And I think it was attorney generals or something. There was something along the lines of those two, so I thought, man, that's pretty neat. I didn't even know that they were offered something like that as my opinion as to whether this person should stay or go. So there was a lot of new things for me that I just didn't know was even an option. But maybe you can enlighten us on how to keep up with that stuff, because, I mean, to me, it just seemed like a lot, and I really didn't have an idea once I got in there. Man, how in the world do you keep up with all these different people and all these different things? So,
well, I think it's good, and it's a good question, and I would like to think that I'm the voice of reason, but that's something probably only in my mind. But it is important that as much time as we spend researching and doing our activities, many of us will say we support the military or we love our country, and it's not that if you don't vote, I guess people could. I know. In my opinion, I wish more people voted, especially when we say we support the military. Well, let's support the military by voting, which they give us the ability to do, by keeping our enemies, foreign and domestic, outside our country and letting us run the nation as we see fit, and that is by voting. And of course, like you said, Gary, it's very important to know how to vote, where to go, register to vote. Then, what can I vote for? Who do I need to vote in? If it's an appointed position as opposed to an elected position. And then what does that person do? How does it affect me when they do their job? The judges, retain or replace. Many people, and I know somebody that just hit retain because they didn't understand yesterday. Bill Haslam got on the one political ad saying that we need to keep the judges because Obamacare, and for the ad in Tennessee, for those who are in Washington, Tennessee, of course, um, Obamacare, of course, is a federal law now, which would be uh, the nickname Obamacare, but Affordable Care Act. And so the PACs, or political action committees, were trying to get the 3 Supreme Court judges for Tennessee to be replaced. And then Bill Haslam came on a commercial, or that was quoted as saying that, it's a federal thing, not a state thing, so our Tennessee Supreme Court justices had nothing to do with it. They had nothing to do with it passing on a federal level, yes. However, many states went and sued the federal government to stay away from or not have that law go into an effect. And our judges did not join with other states in allowing us to sue to stop that. So, in my opinion, those judges should be replaced. And that's how I voted. Many other people, so the guys that I talked to in Eagleville, one guy from a different county, he was very happy with the results because he voted to retain them. He's a Democrat, and so he said one of the few things that he saw from yesterday's results was that we are retaining our judges. So we disagreed and talked about that quite a bit this morning. But you're right, Gary. How do we, as citizens, stay up with how to vote? And on our chat, I think Ken can put this on the show. I guess at the end, we put up links. Election.tn.gov/US Senate, I think, is one of the ones I have. And then Rutherford County or TN or whatever. You can Google your local election commission in your state elections and go see who is being voted or what seats or what is available.
Hey, John, real quick. On the website, we're trying something new for this show. There's a couple of new features we're trying to incorporate.
Hey, did you pass this through your technical advisor?
Yes, I got approval. And so one of the things is what is called, I think it's, the Showcase app. And what it does is, depending on how you're watching the show right now, it could be that you're watching live. It could be that this is a recording that you're watching at a later date. In either case, we have activated a function that allows us to post links to some of the websites we're discussing. So you can, if you want, click on those and then see exactly, as we're talking about it, what we're talking about at the same time. Another of the apps that we're trying is the Q&A app, and that allows you to ask questions. So you can ask a question of anybody on the panel here, and if we see it, we'll pull it up. I think I put a test question in there, so let me see if I can pull that up. But if we see your questions, we will go ahead and then pop it up on the screen and then talk about it. I don't know, I'm not seeing it right now.
Oh, currently answering just a test question, Ken Ivey.
There we go. Right, and that's something on our side, but we should be able to pull that up on the screen here. And quite frankly, I don't know how to do that yet, so we'll get back to that.
Hey, can we have that on recording, please?
Yeah, we'll do that on the recording. In any event, when you're watching the show, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little square that has 9 little squares. So it's a big square made up of 9 little squares. So depending on what you're doing, you could be looking at the Q&A app, and if you want to see the showcase on those websites, click on the little square and then just choose Showcase, and then you'll see that on the bar on your right-hand side. If you're looking at the showcase, the links to the websites we're talking about, then you can click the square and see the Q&A. And so hope that helps. It's a little confusing to us because it's brand new. It just rolled out. So we're experimenting with it, and if it makes sense, we might keep it on further shows. So back to you, John. Go ahead and take it away.
Oh, right. For our local, back to Rutherford County. Let's see here. Ernest Burgess was 69, with a little over 69% of the vote for county mayor. District 1, Doug Schaefer with 95, almost 96% of the vote. Looks like he did run unopposed, and there were a little bit over 4% for write-in. Steve Percy ran unopposed in District 2. Will Jordan in District 3 unopposed. District 4, looks like Robert Pay, an independent, came in with 41%. John Jocks, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, Republican, with nearly 40%, and John Fraser, an independent, with 19%. And chasing a rabbit here, I did talk to one of the guys that ran as an independent, and several, if you look at the county election commission for Rutherford, there are several independents, and one reason several of them said they were running as independent is they didn't have to participate in the primaries. So it was a more cost-effective way as well. And statistically speaking, and I believe if you go to the Rutherford with our show page, Tim Rudd's show did touch on the Republican, Democrat, and Independent, and the Independents typically do not fare well, but in Rutherford County it looks like they are this particular time. Looking down, just looking for another one that were several other independents that won. Out in our area, our commissioner that we voted for, and I was looking for the numbers. Paul Johnson is in District 13. That's in the Case and Lane area. He won as a Republican. David Nipper in District 15. That is over in Jones Boulevard or Jones Road near the Christian school. And trying to find some of the ones that were independents that did win. While I'm doing that, Sheriff Robert Arnold looks like he is going to be sheriff for his second term, beating out Bill Kennedy, the Democrat supported by the previous sheriff, Truman Jones. Dale Armour, the independent, with 28%, and Mr. Trammell with 2% of the vote as an independent. County clerk, which you could vote for, some people don't know that, Lisa Duke Crowell, I'm pronouncing that wrong, with almost 76% of the vote, beat out Lyons as the Democrat. Heather Dawborn with 99% of the vote for Register of Deeds. That was a good show. If you don't know what talking about earlier, Gary, what people can vote for. Some people don't know you can vote for Register of Deeds, and she had a very enlightening show on what you can do there.
Yeah, I didn't even know that either until we had that show.
And Wayne Blair, real quick, we had him on. He was an independent, ran as an independent against Eric, and I never can pronounce Eric's name, and he's very nice. I've known him for many years. Tutabone.
Yes. It's Italian. You got to say
right.
it with your hands, too. Tutabone.
Yeah. And he has a very lovely family, and that show, of course, was very good because Eric was going to run against Wayne, and he put in his thing, and then Eric did what I don't think many people do in our country. He stopped and he thought before he spoke. He met with Wayne, ended up taking up Wayne's side because Wayne was already a known uh, asset to our county, and Eric actually helped elect Wayne, and they were on our show. It was very good. And that's two independents that working together.
I'd like to
So,
add something to that real quick too, because you know, a lot of times in the political atmosphere, oftentimes people who are trying to be elected to whatever position are often looked at as a person who's just a power-hungry individual who wants to be in a position of authority of some kind, and not necessarily as a public servant. And what I like about that story with Eric, basically giving up his run to Wayne and working with Wayne, I think is just a testament to show that that's not, it may be the case that sometimes people are just power hungry and they're trying to get in this position for authority and all the bells and whistles that come along with it, but we also see these stories like that where that's not entirely true all the time. You know, there are definitely people who make a connection, say, well, you're already established, you believe the same values I do, so how about I just be on your side and let's work together on this to get these changes that we would like to see happen instead of working against each other. So that's something I think is really important and a really good part about that story.
and Ted Beatty retained as treasurer for Rutherford County. I did hear something last night on the local station GNS after the election was over. That's another place you can go to, WGNS Radio. They have a lot of very good information, of course, local. And our state is #1 in auto manufacturing. Our state is #1 destination for retirees. We created more jobs in Tennessee than Texas or California. We're about #1 in job creation. And #4 in something, I forgot what #4 was. So Tennessee is doing very well. Oh, and we are almost, we're in the top 5, if I remember right, of debt to income. We have very little debt, as most states and in some places, cities or local municipalities are going bankrupt. We do not have that problem in Tennessee, which is a testament to our state's legislatures and how they're managing the books.
Unfortunately, I think with what you just said is that Tennessee has done a great job. I'm afraid that others like to take credit for it, and I'll just leave that at that. So others who aren't even in Tennessee or live in Tennessee like to take credit for something that's not even there. So I'll just throw that out there. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I'd just like to add, Gary, that you didn't build that.
Say that again.
You didn't build that.
You didn't build that.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, and County Commissioner, Rutherford County Commissioner, District 8, Pettis Reed is who was Edward Phillips, Pettis Reed, Steve Spence, two independents and one Republican. Independents Reed and Spence, Republican Phillips. Reed pulled it out with 37%, almost 38% of the vote in District 8. But there were 2 independents and 1 Republican, and there was the Republican received 32%, Pettis Reed with 37.98 or 38% of the vote, and the other independent, Steve Spence, at 29.92 or 30% of the vote. So it's really amazing how people strategize to whether to register to be a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent in their races to see who will win and how to do it. Gary, if you want to add some things, I'm going to switch over here to the state election results and look at some of those.
Sure. While you're doing that, can you tell our audience what the website is that they can use or look at for the state results?
www.elections, and the elections does have an s.tn.gov.
Okay, thank you very much. One other thing while you're pulling that up is I think it's something be neat, and I'm just saying this out here for the show itself, but it may not be a bad idea for us in the future, just as a whole, to maybe have a list of different people who are running for our county and different things, and basically put what they stand for. So, if this district attorney stands for, or criminal court appeals individual stands for this or that, it might be good to have that on our site in the future, and that way it can be a one-stop shop for anybody who wants to come and kind of get an idea of who they would like to vote for. So with that, John, I'll pass it back to you.
I think that's a good idea, Gary. In fact, I mean, we could just take the opportunity right now to say that anyone who is running for office, considering running for office, feel free to contact us at the show, and we'll be happy to, give you your 2 cents for everyone to ask questions about and kind of get an idea of where you stand. Uh, it's kind of easy to get on the show because we're willing to talk to anybody, and we won't beat you up like other people will. We give you a heads up. We're going to say, okay, well, what do you think the issues are, and we'll discuss those issues. We're not going to say, where were you last Thursday night, because we've got a picture of you with this nefarious-looking person. We'll give you a fair shot to state your case, tell us what you're all about, so you can speak to the people of Murfreesboro. And as you can see, anyone who's ever been on our show wins, so it's probably a good thing for you to do.
District 13 for the Tennessee House of Representative, Eddie Smith looks like edged out Jason Imbert by 30 votes. Was looking for let me go back. Thanks for the music. I'm gonna have to flip that back over. What was that?
Three Stooges, my friend. Three Stooges.
That should be our theme song for this show.
That's right.
Hey, Mo! For the United States Senate, Lamar Alexander edged out Joe Carr. Lamar has almost 330,000 votes. Joe Carr has almost 270,000 votes. Let's see. For the Democrats, looks like Lamar Alexander will run against Gordon Ball in November. Mr. Ball has 87,000 votes. His closest competitor was Adams at 85,000 votes. So for the U.S. Senate in November, we're looking at a Lamar Alexander and Gordon Ball as the in that race. Let's flip back here to the House, Tennessee House. And are there any districts either one of you are more concerned about than anyone else? 48th district is a local one for us. Slide down here a little bit. How do we... I got to District 9 and we need to go all the way to 48. I wonder how we do that. That dead air sounds good. There we go. Huh. It won't. Maybe the state's pages are being overworked this morning, as last night's election is people like us checking on them. But I can't scroll past United States House Representative District 9.
Yeah,
Again, for all
mine's the same
technical
here.
direction, please contact John at murfreesborolive.com.
Let's see. Let's try this. Maybe there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Maybe at this time they just don't have that information completely ready yet. I don't know. That's a good, because mine's only going to that too as well, John. So maybe later today they'll have it better updated or whatnot.
All right, on the Tennessee House Representative, thank you for double checking that. District 48, it looks like Brian Terry edged out local Rutherford County. I've known him for quite a while. Adam Coggin. Terry has 2,669 votes to Adam Coggin with 2,215 votes. So it looks like Terry will go against William Bill Campbell, the Democrat, in November. And like you said earlier, Gary, Mike Sparks edged out Robert Stevens by just over, looks like under 350, 400 votes. So Sparks will go against Mike Williams. So we will need to check those two out for November. Trying to look at and of course Kelsey Ketchern is the daughter of Bill Ketchern, and she won her state executive committee member on the Republican side for District 13 at nearly 70% of the vote against Perkins. So, looking at the multitasking here, looking at the iPod and the laptop.
Uh-oh.
So
Watch out, everybody.
Kid crashing it.
It is riveting, John, to watch you flip back and forth between those, and that nice glow on your face from the iPad. I'm just enthralled.
If you do it from the top, you can see my balding head.
So while he's looking at that stuff, folks, one thing we could do, if you want us to interview any one of the political candidates, why don't you, below the video here, just put a comment of who it is you would like to see, and then if we get enough comments or votes for a particular individual, we might go ahead and talk to them about doing an interview live at one of the upcoming shows before the next election.
Here's an interesting thing. Smyrna Town Court Judge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All 5 candidates ran as independents. The clerk in Smyrna, both of them were independents. Excuse me. School board members for Zone 7, and everybody is running as an independent. There's a jailbreak. And it looks like all the state court of criminal appeals, William will retain his seat. Page will retain that seat. Trying to see if any of them were replaced, but they all look like they have 58% of the votes or higher. So it looks like the judges. Oh, replaced. Supreme Court Clark at large seat will be replaced at 50% versus 49. Uh-oh, what's going to happen here? There's a line on the iPad.
Real
It
quick,
look,
John. Quick question that I have, and maybe a question of the audience as well, is that when somebody runs for independent, does that just mean that they are not running for either Republican or Democrat? I mean, for example, you know, sometimes they may be running for a conservative position like, say, Republican, and it's just cheaper to run as an independent. So they actually are a Republican, but they are running as independent just so they don't have to go through the primary elections. Or could some of these people even be with a different party like Libertarian or Green Party, or kind of some of the other parties we've covered on a previous show?
yes, that is one way of hiding your. Well, there's two. I know of two reasons. There's probably more, and maybe this we could have an independent on the show, and they could tell us why. But yes, if you run as an independent, you do not have to run in the Republican or a Democratic primary in the state of Tennessee. And one thing we have to clarify on our show is that the rules for Tennessee may be different from Alabama or a different state. So you'll have to see the balloting, getting on the ballot in your local jurisdiction, as opposed to Rutherford County or within the state of Tennessee. But yeah, somebody could really be, for instance, a notable one. Oh, now I just forgot his name. I didn't want to interrupt you. He's in the Senate, and he was a Democrat, and he was going to lose his seat, and he ran as an independent. He's in Massachusetts or Maine. Anyway, he won as he beat the Democrat. And that's been several years ago. I don't know if Ken can remember. I know he pays into some politics. I don't know how to look it up without using too much of the internet, and it probably look grainy. But Lieberman, Joe Lieberman, he was a Democrat. He switched his party affiliation to independent and then retained a seat.
So basically, it could be a strategy as far as getting certain votes.
And historically, Rutherford County is, and in Tennessee, of course, is a Democratic state. It's only been in the last 15 to 25 years, maybe, that Tennessee has turned more Republican voting than Democrat. And out in our district, out in 99, if you're in a suburb, where somebody sold their farm and built a bunch of houses, there's a cluster of houses. Most of those houses in that subdivision are conservative or typically vote Republican. If you're in the farm or even further out in the county, a lot of them still vote Democratic. So when you're going to run for a office or hold a seat, strategy, Gary, plays a huge part in seeing the election results from previous years to know whether you need to run as a Democrat or a Republican. In Pennsylvania, several years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I forgot the guy's name that was a Republican, in the middle of his term changed to a Democrat. In Louisiana, there's near New Orleans, I believe, one of their representatives in the, I don't think it was a state, it may be in the state, he was a Democrat, changed his party affiliation to Republican. I think he won as a Republican the next election. So you can be elected as under one party and in the middle of your term switch to the other party. So that's an interesting thing that we can do in our country too.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that's good to know that, if at some point you do change values, you don't have to just be stuck with your old party affiliation, but you do have the right to change to, wherever you believe your values are.
And I'm glad we can do that, and this is going to be double talk, but when you run as under one party and you're elected to represent your constituents, not necessarily what you think, but your constituents, how they think you should vote, and you change parties in the middle. I don't know, that's kind of
Well, it depends on which side of it you're on, because I mean, if you are a Democrat and your
the way I
guy just
like
changed
it,
to a
okay.
Republican, yeah, I mean, I could see you being mad. But if you're Democrat, there was a Republican guy elected, and then he changes to Democrat, it's all fancy and good for you. So I could see that also depending on, you know, just where you voted to begin with, is how you like it or don't like it. Um, you know, and you're right. I mean, because you are, from what I understand, supposed to vote as, you know, what your constituents, well, I can't say it. Yeah, exactly. Uh, because that's who you're representing. That's the idea of a republic, and why we're not a democratic society. We're not going to vote as individuals for every single law that needs to be passed. We elect people to do that for us. So, and they're supposed to represent our beliefs, basically. And so
people have funded your campaign, and so those dollars came in for either party, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. But whoever helped fund your campaign gave you dollars with the understanding, not that they're buying your vote, but helped you get elected to represent the values of that district. And then in the middle, somebody changes sides. Hooray, I'm voting for the other team or rooting for the other team. That doesn't set well with me. Either way, I just... Now, like you say, if it's a liberal that turns conservative, then maybe they saw the light. But still, that I don't know about character. I Ken, jump in here. I see your mic is turned.
There is no such thing as a liberal who sees the light. Once they're liberal and it's ingrained in their blood, they're just that's just the way they are. I think it probably differs a little bit with national and local politics. I think probably with local politics, you won't see as much flip-flopping party affiliations as you would on the national side. So it's wise for us to not only look at a party, because a party has a platform, and candidates, generally speaking, agree with the things that are on the party platform. And if they don't, typically during the election, they kind of highlight that and bring it out and say, this is one of the things I don't agree with. But the sneaky ones are the ones, especially in larger ones. We talked about Joe Lieberman, who change party affiliations merely for electability. Mm-hmm. So those are the career politicians who really, you know, I think it's a probably fairly assumed statement that they don't care. If they did care, you know, they'd be doing things on issues, not on party lines. And you see all too often people voting, especially in Congress and Senate, straight down the party line. Doesn't matter, you know, how it affects people. They're just trying to push a particular agenda. One thing that comes to mind for me, I think one of the reasons President Obama garnered so much of the soft conservative or independent vote were some of the things he voted on particular issues. One of those particular issues was traditional marriage. At one point, he was supporting traditional marriage, and then his views evolved on that subject. Now, I don't know that in the span of a couple of years, who you are could change so much that you could, you know, just flip-flop on a pretty important issue like that. But he did, and he got away with it. And, you know, people voted him in. And so that's the way politics is played. It's a numbers game. As support for a particular thing shifts, i.e. traditional marriage versus gay marriage, the politicians will gravitate toward the thing that is the most popular. So they're always trying to pick the winner, regardless of how their constituents truly feel on the subject or their own personal beliefs. They want to win because winning means they keep their paycheck, they keep their endorsements, they keep their backroom deals and all that good stuff. You probably don't see as much of that on a local level as you would on a national level. And yes, it's upsetting, and we should vote all the bums out. That's my word.
And for complaints, you call Ken at 555-1212.
Yeah. And if we vote all the bums out, we should vote all the ones except for the ones who turn Republican. Just plain.
Hey, but I think Ken and Gary, you guys both have made good points. To look at what can we vote for, and then educate ourselves by the candidates. What are their values? Do they have character?
And don't listen to what they say. Look at what they've
done.
That's
Look
right.
at their history.
That's right. And also pay attention to incongruencies with what they say and what they do. Because incongruencies can always show us, what they truly stand for.
And years ago, and I did a little bit of study. I don't know. It's been about a year ago. But I don't know, in the 50s through the mid 80s, most of the elected officials in the country had been in the military for a period of time. If you look back in the last 10 to 12, 15 years, a majority of the people in elected positions have not been in the military.
That's true. And as commander-in-chief, if you're talking about that office, it's helpful to have a little bit of military background, but I don't think it's totally necessary. As long as you're a good manager and a good thinker and keep that congruency that Gary was talking about before, things like if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. It's going to cost or save $2,500 for most families, things of that nature. When you start backtracking on all these promises, then you're looking at someone who is just someone who wants to be elected as to take care of the American people, to safeguard the Constitution, things like, the things they're voted to do.
Yeah.
Vote them out. Vote the bums out.
Throw the bums out. And if we look at in voting the bums out, too, the election cycles, not all of the bums are being voted at the same time. So we have to be consistent at voting so that we don't leave some bum in that should have been voted out. One thing I may have flip-flopped on, I wasn't before, but I think I am now and have been for quite a while, is term limits. And then you hear people say, well, we have voting. That's a term limit. Well, why don't we have that same criteria for the president as we do for our other elected officials? I'm certainly right now, and for the last, since I've started studying about politics and elections and how our government runs and supposed to run, I am for term limits. I don't see why they need to be there for many years.
I'm going to say no on that. I'm going to take the opposite position.
Well, you can be wrong. It's all right.
Yeah, I could be wrong. It's not likely, but it could be wrong. When you think about a position like the president, okay, he's got a 4-year term, and then he can do, if he's popular enough, another 4-year term. And we've seen some presidents do that, and that's good in my opinion because the people want it. If they didn't like it, vote him out. But here's the thing: can you imagine stepping into the role of President of the United States tomorrow, and then trying to figure out, who do I need to know? Who do I need to talk to about this particular issue? Or something blows up, Russia invades Ukraine. What do I do? Who are the players? It takes a while to develop those relationships, and this is a really important job. And if you've got to always be worried about being elected and all of that good stuff, you're going to spend so much time going to fundraisers and doing all the junk that really doesn't matter just to stay in a position where you might be able to make 1 or 2 good decisions. I say, let the president run 50 years if he can keep getting elected. That way we've got someone who knows what they're doing, has credibility, and will make us a leader in the world again.
It worked well for Cuba and a couple other countries. No, I I disagree. We got away from a king or an elect or someone that was entrenched. And up until the last 60 years, most, now there has been some, like the gentleman from West Virginia, and there's been a couple that have been in Congress or the Senate for a long time. But at one time, the businessmen stopped their business. They went to Washington for 4, 6, 12, 8 years, whatever it was. They came back home and ran their business. And we, in our government, functioned fairly well. And we were a world leader. The last 30 to 60 years, a lot of the politicians have been there for so long, and after living outside or just outside the Beltway by about 6 miles or less for many years, Washington has changed. People get up there and they get their franking privileges so they can mail. The people that are in power today have so many perks, private parking, airfare. They have so much. They have no intention of doing the people's business. It is truly their business. So that's another reason why I don't disagree. Well, I disagree with the president, certainly. And I can see why people say, well, we have voting, so that should be a term limit. As long as we want them in there, it should be reelected. If they're doing my business, fine. But they're not. They have more pay raises. They do all kind of actions that support themselves and not me as a constituent. So for that reason, I am certainly for term limits.
Well, I mean, I can see term limits, but I think voting works. And if you look at the polls that have come out recently, there was a Pew poll, I think it was, that showed, if Romney ran against Obama now, after Obama's had a chance to make his case and to build up over the past 6 years whatever he was going to do, that Romney would have won. So people aren't happy with Obama. If he was able to run again, he wouldn't get elected. He'd get beat down.
And the other side of that is, other than Reagan, and I forgot who the other one was, that Pew poll has been done in the 6 years, yes. Bless his heart. Most presidents have had their second term in their 6th year. Whoever they ran against would have been elected anyway. So yes, I see that poll, but the other side is most of us have short-term memory lapse anyway, and we would have voted for the other team. We always want to vote for the winner. In this case, it's true, particularly because Romney said how bad Russia was, and then other political points that he made, and people cried foul, mostly the pundits. And so I think the media has such an influence on elections that people don't stop and do their own research. We're busy. Soccer practice for the children, working more, having less. All of that takes up time.
Which is why we have this show here today, because we want to be able to show people on this show and show them what they actually have to say. And of course, I kind of disagree with both you guys. I think both sides work for the Illuminati anyway. They're trying to take over the whole world and world domination, so I'm just kidding. I don't really have an opinion on that here or there. I just want to bring in the conspiracy
corporations who own the Illuminati, who do the little puppet strings over all the politicians. So there you go.
What
so I
is
had to throw that in there, Do what?
Can we say Illuminati? This is a family show.
I don't know. By saying Illuminati, we may have made ourselves a target, even if it's a joke. Soon the show will be deleted, by the way. Not by us, but by the Illuminati.
Well, as we know, we have about 1 or 2 minutes left of the show. But I do want to say a word that good job, Gary, for voting for the first time in a non-presidential election.
Well, thank you, John.
And I think, Ken, thank you for your service in the military and doing the other things that you've done and for our nation. And I do, I want the Illuminati coming in. And I do say this on a serious note. One of my good friends in Washington retired, I believe it was Monday, after 35 years working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Won't say her name, uh, but as they say in Washington, our country has lost a fantastic civil servant in these times of peril that the FBI and the other agencies are going through. We have definitely lost somebody that has legacy knowledge and character that retired in the FBI this week. So thank you for your service. And you can punch us out of here and put it in the books.
All right. We'll see you again next week, folks.